collaborate.
What do you think about 80-hour week?
80 hours per week. I would say that 1% have to put 80 hours, so 99% could do 40 hours.
Together and
Biggest
work and
data center
come
myth.
up with
Every time they go and ask the
solutions.
question to ChatGPT, they are consuming water. No, it's not.
Now,
the case.
one city outside the top
bunch of
4
people-
that
bunch
becomes
of
a
people.
serious data center hub in the next 5 years.
I think it's already obvious. It's like it's Vishakhapatnam.
Mumbai is saturated, but why do you think companies go there? There are a lot of data centers there.
The funny way to answer is that the reason why the whole country goes to Mumbai.
Welcome, Mr. Sharath Agarwal. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the show.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do a quick rapid fire round.
Sure.
Hyperscaler cloud or sovereign cloud?
Actually, both. Hyperscaler today, sovereign cloud tomorrow.
25 years
Vote,
in,
sir.
one biggest mistake Sify did.
Didn't plan for higher, much bigger scale. That data centers have a environmental impact, or data centers use water.
AI inference or AI training? Where does India's infrastructure money go first?
Inferencing. Right now, inferencing should go to training, but we are not there yet.
One thing global hyperscalers can't do in India that Sify can.
Build a data center from land acquisition to production in less than 24 months.
Mumbai is, saturated, but why do you think companies go there? There are a lot of data centers there.
Majority of the companies are headquartered in Mumbai. So the first wave of data centers were in Mumbai or in Chennai, where the other side was there. And then that created a stickiness to Mumbai. That when the hyperscalers came, they needed 3 data center 10 kilometer or 15 kilometer apart from each other in the country. The only city that had that was Mumbai. Now they are stuck with that. So it is, I think it's the stickiness and some...
I talked about, we both
Legacy.
discussed
Sandeep
in
Datta,
terms of the Indian cultural
head
context
of
aspect, the collective
AWS.
consciousness. So
So he
which
said that
naturally
the
brings me
company
to this.
does not
Global
use
video
water
models
at all
miss
for
that,
cooling their data
which
centers.
naturally
And at the
brings me to
same time,
this.
Satya Nadella during the
Global
Microsoft Build conference, he also claimed that they use closed water loop system, which reduces the consumption of water to something like what a restaurant uses for a year. So we just spoke about water
SMEs,
consumption
the
as well.
company
So
to be
what are we trying to do to reduce the
right now
consumption of water?
When you
coming up
lose
with
your-
any new,
frustrating.
system?
I've played the guitar.
as a
for,
creator
Cooling
for sure.
in data center is done using 2 different methods, or can be done using 2 or 3 different methods. One is evaporative cooling, where lots of water is brought, potable water is brought,
and bridge
then
the gap between
because of
their
the evaporation of water, what we have seen in our crude way, in our coolers, where water evaporates and creates humidity or whatever, then and that drops the temperature.
team
That
could
is
have
one
sent
way of doing it. If we do that, then according to one of the US Department of Energy reports, the water consumption in a data center is 3 to 5 million gallon per megawatt per year.
Oh, okay. Per megawatt.
Per year. The second method is, according to one of the US fill Department of Energy pipes with the water, water consumption in a data center, and it takes about just 3,000 to 1,000 liters 5 million megawatt. One time.
Just one
Per
just
megawatt per megawatt,
Oh,
3,000 to 10,000
Per
liter
megawatt.
per megawatt per megawatt. And then the second on a yearly basis, only the leakage is what needs to be taken care of, and it is no more than 100 to 1,000 liter per annum per megawatt.
So is it the same closed water loop system that we're talking about?
This is the closed loop water system. And we have in India adapted the closed loop water system. And this ensures that we are not dependent on water at all. So we do not have that water. You are right. So India does not have enough water. Nowhere in the, nobody across the world should use that kind of a system, because water is precious. So we as an industry, and I fully concur with what Sandeep has said and Mr. Nadella has said, right? And in fact, I have also said similar thing in my LinkedIn post few months back, right? That no, we have adapted to closed loop water chiller systems. And using this, we have reduced the water dependence, and we are not likely to consume as much water. And this is one of the reason I was saying that it's a myth, the biggest myth that people are carrying, that every time they go and ask a question to ChatGPT, they are consuming water. They are consuming water. No, it's not the case, at least in the Indian context. But also the third is the grey water usage. So what we are also doing is that taking grey water and using the grey water supply from the industrial authorities or the treated water, and combine it with our regular cooling methods, and use the grey water for the purpose of your evaporative cooling.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So combine the closed loop water chiller systems with the grey water evaporative cooling system. That also creates the, let's say, the environmentally also around the data center also. It manages the temperature around the data centers also.
So I think this pretty much sums up the debate on water usage. The single largest operating cost for a data center is power. And then there is India, which produces 1.5 million engineering graduates in a year. But certified data center operation talent is a little bit scarce right now. Is the people's problem bigger than the power generation problem right now?
See, the talent is challenge, definitely. And there is a lot of effort that we are putting to ensure that we are developing the talent. And it is working closely with the universities and academia to ensure that we are able to induct fresh graduates into the data center world. And that's what I was saying earlier when we were chatting before the podcast, that this is the time for all the core engineers to remain in their engineering branches in place of migrating to the technology world or the IT world. So it's a positive also that a lot of those mechanical, electrical engineers who, because of the peer pressures, move to technology world, but they really wanted to be mechanical, electrical engineers. Now they have a very challenging task in their hand to remain in their core branches and contribute towards the data centers. So it is a challenge, but not something which is unmanageable, and where a company like us is immensely focused on building that talent pool. Yeah.
Singapore's data centers run at tier 4 with lesser latency regionally. So where does India's best facility sit on that benchmark?
So the tier 4 is not necessarily a need. Tier 4 means a lot of redundancies, one for one kind of a redundancy. And I do not think necessarily that is a kind of a redundancy required, because at the same time, we also need to be aware about so much of idle equipment playing there. And therefore, majority of the organizations across the world have resolved to a fact that tier 3 setups, where you have one or two redundancy, so n+2 or n+1 redundancy, is good enough to take care of the similar kind of demand. Now also, as you understand it this way, that there are a lot of redundancies over redundancies created when we deploy the infrastructure. So an application developer, when they want to install, let's say, their ERP system, they will deploy their ERP system in 2 servers. Those 2 servers will have their 2 sets of hard disk to ensure that there is enough redundancy there. And then that will be put in a primary near DR and the far DR. And then you will have those primary near DR and far DR also having an electrical, mechanical, and the cooling and all the systems which will have a lot of redundancies. So you see that the level of redundancies that we create, which is redundancies are also wastage. And in a way, the impact to sustainability and environment also, because you are consuming a lot more resources. So keeping all those things in the mind and into the consideration, we did resolve that n+2 kind of a redundancy is good enough. So tier 3 is the good enough redundancy. All the hyperscalers also deploy their whole infrastructure in that kind of a redundancy level. They don't deploy on an n+n redundancy. And that is the requirement of tier 4. So in that aspect, almost all the data centers we have built are tier 3. There are certain data centers that are, because of the regulatory demands, require tier 4. So we have seen no more than 5% of the demand that we have seen so far, not even 5%, maybe 2 or 3% demand is required for the tier 4 setup, and we take care of that. So we are taking care of in the ways that the way our use cases demand or the end user demands are there, or end use cases demands are there. So 2 to 3% demand for tier 4, we are taking care of that. And then majority of the demand is for tier 3. That's how we are doing. The latency side, latency is between the two ends, right? Now, the two ends means, again, going back, that if we are serving India, then within India, we are able to achieve actually that kind of latency. What Sify has done is that Sify has established express fiber routes between all the data centers of the country. Right now, we have 91 data centers of not just ours, the country's 91 data centers connected through express fiber routes. And because of that, invariably, we have seen that we are able to offer much better latency in comparison to the carrier grade networks. Yeah.
With regard to redundancies, I think some players in US or in the Europe, I think they are trying to come up with mini data centers or data centers which has less redundancy layers because one size doesn't fit all. Because some customers, they don't want higher redundancy layers, they want much lower, because higher redundancy layer again generates a lot of power, it creates a lot of energy. So are we also looking towards something like that, customizing the redundancy layers infrastructure based on the customer's demand?
Yeah, those kind of demands we have not seen in India yet. Yeah, but you're right, there are use cases. So let's say training usage. If you are running the training workloads, and you just run the training workloads, if it fails, it will probably pick it up from there. And I have heard some data center in Ohio, because of certain reasons related with energy availability or the heat wave or whatever, they just shut off the data center for a few days. Because they were not running the production workloads. They were not running your banking system, which needs to be always available. So if there are use cases like that, obviously it's good to have. We haven't seen those use cases yet. Yeah. Even without any kind of redundancy, we have seen that data centers can commit to 99.5% availability. There's a 99.5% availability possible with zero redundancies.
That's something new, actually. We are hearing it for the first time. Coming back to Sify, one last question. Sify is putting infrastructure in Patna, Lucknow, Gift City. These aren't traditional tech hubs. Is this a genuine infrastructure thesis that you come up with, or it's a steal because the real estate is much cheaper there?
Yeah, real estate is not cheap anywhere around the world, and anywhere in the country at least, especially in the tier 2 cities like this. So it's not a land grab. It is being done with a solid use case and the demand. There are 4 different kinds of demands. One is the hyperscalers that we are all aware. The second is the GPU neo clouds demand. Third is the enterprise demands, where we are saying the banking and financial sector and the others are driving that. And then the fourth is edge computing or edge data centers.
And like you mentioned, government is also including AI in their system slowly. Every state government has started to do it. Are we in talks with some state governments, to store data for them?
Yep. We are all in conversation. Obviously, there is a lot of government motivation also there, and governments is also, all these state governments are very keen in enabling AI into governance also. Also creating the environment or incubation center for promotion of AI-based researches within the state governments or within the states and locally there. So yes, there is a good motivation, good drive coming from the governments, and also we are reacting to that and also taking our ideas also to them. Yes.
So is there something you would like to add on Sify's journey, maybe where can we see Sify in the next 5 years?
Yeah, Sify is looking at continue to grow the way it has grown. Right. It is one of the surviving and growing companies. a rare company who have been in technology and the network world for more than 3 decades now. Ever since the internet came, Sify existed, right? It has ridden the waves of transformation, changes in the industry. And going forward, we will continue to ride the wave and even drive the wave. That's the plan is. And the idea is to take it to the next level very soon and scale it uh, to stay relevant.
Data center is the booming sector right now. Everybody is talking about data centers, especially from the Indian ecosystem. So AWS is building, 3 availability zones right now in India. Google has announced their $2 billion investment, and Reliance is also constructing its own hyperscaler infrastructure. After 25 years, what does Sify have that they don't have?
See, the one is the experience, second is the credibility, and then third is the predictability. What our customers get is that fast time to market because of our experience of doing this work for last 25 years. It's not easy to build an infrastructure, and data center is combination of multiple infrastructure. It is physical, that is building. It has electricity, energy. It has the water aspects to some extent, not a lot. It has the network aspect. And all these factors need to be taken care of in the right manner. And it involves interaction with 30 plus different authorities and approvals. Now, to take care of that in Indian scenario, that Indian knowledge, ability to navigate the Indian system, local system, anywhere is important.
We were going through the DHRP, which was published a few months ago. So what we found out was almost 70% of Sify's revenue, comes from 3 or 4 hyperscalers that you have. And one of the risk factors which was mentioned was that retaining these clients is a huge task. So what will be Sify's strategy? Will you look for alternative source of revenue, or what's the strategy that you're looking forward to right now?
Yeah. See, as of today, having 5 customers contributing to, let's say, even 70 to 80% of revenue, is that a reality? Because majority of the demand and majority of the investment in the AI infrastructure or cloud infrastructure is being done by 5 hyperscalers. And most of the enterprises are anyway moving to cloud. So they are using these infrastructure only. Either they will use this infrastructure or any other cloud infrastructure. But this is what is the reality. So having 5 top customers contributing to more than 70% business, it's actually very safe bet, because that's how the overall usage also is projected to have in the market. But having said that, there are also another half a dozen customers who we believe will be contributing to our P&L a lot, our revenue a lot. And these are primarily divided into 3 more segments beyond hyperscalers. One is banking and financial sector of the country, who are continue to remain on-prem or continue to remain on a dedicated private cloud platform. They are building their own private cloud platform, and the RBI and the government also is promoting them to have less reliance on the cloud and build more sovereignty, and for obvious reasons, because it has a huge economic impact if something happens to these banks. So that is one segment, and we have majority of the banks as our customers. Second is the sovereign cloud companies. India is getting the new age sovereign cloud companies who need a lot of infrastructure within the country. And third is the GPU cloud companies. These are the companies who are providing infrastructure for training and inferencing purposes. Now, these 3 put together, I would say that another half a dozen and that are the five hyperscalers. So these 11 customers, I would believe, will contribute to 90% of our business. That's how we see it going forward.
We've acquired a lot of land for physical infrastructure. So I just wanted to know how will be the occupancy rate for it, because BFSI and financial sectors, I think they've been traditional users of data centers for quite some time, for at least 20-30 years, I guess. So I just wanted to know, because what we see is that going forward, AI will take more space in the data center ecosystem than the traditional houses like in the finance sector. So that's why.
No. Both will be there. Both will be there. The mix will keep changing towards AI first, and then there will be when more and more inferencing come, then the enterprise usage also will catch up and contribute a lot to that. So that both will be there. But the usage wise, right now we are in a scenario for like next 2-3 years. We will always be playing the catch-up game to the demand. There is a lot more demand, and there will be our ability to execute and bring out more and more infrastructure will be helpful. So usage is expected to be very high in next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Sharad, for joining us and taking your time to explain a lot of details.
Thank you so
We
much.
would like to have you again sometime.
I'm very definitely always available, and thank you so much. It was a very great interaction.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Days ago, Anthropic suspended access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for foreign nationals, following a phone call from Amazon CEO Andy Jassy to the US Treasury Secretary. Now, within hours, Mistral CEO Arthur Mensch was writing publicly, "We exist outside of state control. States and organizations need to have sovereignty over AI technology. They should own and control the systems that are specifically embedding their IP and tacit knowledge." End quote. Now, the question this country and every country watching has to answer is quite uncomfortable. If someone else controls the model, the compute, and ultimately the kill switch, how much control do we actually have? Ramesh Pudukode, technology and financial advisor at Primerica, and Amit Raj, who's the co-founder at Future Minds Institute, join me today on Point Break to argue, to discuss, and to shed light on what should be the road ahead. Welcome to Point Break, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Sudeep.
Wonderful to have you both. With this immediate recent development, before I get into the overall questions, and I would like for you to set up scenarios, etc., very quickly, in one line, I would like to understand what is your immediate reaction. Amrit, I would like to start with you.
So yeah, I'm a content creator also. So 2 days back, I created a content, Claude has released their biggest model, Fable 5 and Mythos 5. You can use Fable 5, and 2 days later they ban it.
Wow.
And, I was working on a project and I was checking, model Fable 5 was not working. So it was kind of disappointing. It is like, they're gatekeeping it from us. So yeah, like within 2 days, if unilaterally someone can, restrict the usage of a model. And imagine if I had deployed something big, or, I have been
True.
using it for something, deeper into my product,
Yes.
then it would have caused me some trouble, right? They did it in 3 days. What if they did it in 3 months or 6 months or 1 year down the line, right? You cannot trust.
See your
My
point.
entire build will be done. Yeah.
See your point.
So, yeah, very disappointing.
The sheer
Yeah.
level of dependency, Ramesh, that Amrit just alluded to, I want to understand, is that something that you can just do and hold the world at ransom in a big way, Ramesh? Just because, the government has every right to, protect itself, fair enough, but there is also a responsibility towards a larger population across the world. What are your thoughts?
Yes, Sudeep, I agree with you on the first aspect, whether if it was done to protect or not to share the model with the others, okay, as a compared as a sort of like a mode, then I agree with you. But I also read that Jassy, the Amazon CEO, called because they did a jailbreak and found the vulnerabilities. I
True.
don't know how true it is, but if it is the second case, then I can fully understand, because we don't want any non-state actors to get access to this model and then run havoc across the world. Now, be it financial or banking, defense or anything like that. Therefore, I don't know the real reason. I mean, if it is the first one, I do agree. Every country. I mean, you should not do that, and it will get a lot of corporations and all based on this.
True.
Yeah, it will affect. But if it is a second one, then I think it's better to stop at the beginning rather than going, let's say, a year from now they found these glitches and then having a major problem. That's how I look at it.
Okay,
You know what I
very
mean?
quickly, I'll come to you, Ramesh. I'll follow up on that. You talked about a jailbreak, yes. Andy Jassy did talk about it, but then Anthropic responded with the fact that it was not something which was that glaring, and it was something that, well, could have been handled. They denied the fact that there was such a significant issue as far as things were concerned. Do you not feel that it is a breakdown of communication between one company and the government? Because let's also not forget, there was this entire narrative as far as the Department of War was concerned, and Anthropic has not been in the best books as far as the government is concerned, right? So there has been that slight friction in the relationship for some time. Then communications break down, and that's exactly what the Axios report also talks about. A clear, glaring breakdown of communications, and then people like Amrit are held ransom. I mean, what if? He's right. What if there were commitments he had in terms of going ahead and delivering to, let's say, a customer? What are your thoughts now then?
Okay, coming back, I do understand on that point. If it was some animosity between the Anthropic and the US government, and that what resulted it, then it is a shame. That should not happen.
I mean, that's my presumption, honestly.
Yes, exactly. Now, we don't know what transpired, what Jassy said, and what Anthropic, I saw in their tweet saying it's not a big deal. Now, we knew about it, or something that, but why can't they fix it? My problem is, why do they give that even the 2% chance of some non-state actors tomorrow? I agree, Amrit is affected. I'm not denying it, but I am talking about the 2% or 1% chance, some non-state actor misusing it and have a running havoc across the world. And for I don't know what is the how severity is that issue that only Amazon knows and US government knows and Anthropic knows. But that's where even I'm confused. To be frank, I'm also like, why can't Anthropic release now? It's almost a week now. Why can't they fix it and release it and tell, okay, this is it, and make a public tweet so that everyone knows, okay, this is done or this has been fixed.
Okay, Amrit.
I would like to add over here.
Yes, please go ahead.
I would like to add to this thing. So basically, in their, Anthropic released a notification, right, on their website, right? They said, they explained the issue in proper, entirety. And they said, the problem which they stated, right, it happens in GPT 5.5 as well. The leak which they were saying, it was there in ChatGPT 5.5 as well. And, they thought according to them, it is not that big of an issue and easily, fix it. And it is already existing. But why did they shut it down? Because of the government dictate. Because once a government tells you, right, and uses, I guess I'm forgetting the term. So when they dictate,
they've been called non-state actors, Amrit. Anthropic has been called non-state actors in the past.
And they were asked, as a national security threat. When you start using, these things, and in the current situation where US is actively involved in war with Iran, and there have been news of being used broad models for choosing targets and everything. So in that scenario, there's exactly the point you said, right? There's a huge communication gap, and there might be some bad vibes or bad feathers. So we have to take all these things into consideration. But these problems have been existing with AI models, right? If bad actors are the internet has been used by cyber attackers and whatnot. So
Fair, I
one
mean,
or
that's
2%
fine.
things.
But see, the point that one is making today on Point Break with you two gentlemen, fine, Ramesh ends up saying, where he's sitting on the other side, where he's saying, all right, non-state actors, or for that matter, malified intent, should not creep in. That's his take. Your take is, and this is what the case I would like for you to make. As far as access, right? Access first, Amrit, was always the theory. And I'm sure you would agree with me on that. And that is something which I would like for you to go ahead and talk to me about. Make the case that access first was the only realistic strategy any country outside the United States or China actually had. And sovereignty talk now is actually panic dressed up as so-called wisdom. That's the argument I would like you to make. And then I would come to Ramesh for an argument that I would like for him to make.
Yes. Now, talking about access, see, AI is only thing which has brought the entire world at a similar grounds in terms of technology. If you see, right, like US was way ahead of us, in terms of internet and all the tech which they were doing. But now AI has brought the entire world at a similar level. Obviously, like the base models have been made in the US, but the application layer, like at the application layer, all are in the same ground. Right. And if I'm like, let's say a lot of startups are building, on top of these models, right?
Sure.
And I was telling you earlier also, right? My product is deployed, right? It is, based out of, Claude, let's say, Opus 4.8. And, it is actively working. And tomorrow, if I'm in fintech and they say, no, Opus 4.8 is also dangerous, right? We are shutting that also down for all the foreign nationals, right? So where does this leave me? Right, in terms of my local customer, because if fintech right, it is a very high trust industry, or let us say any other industry also. I lose my customer trust. They won't see whether it is Claude or something. They will like, Amrit, I had taken your subscription. I was on your app, but your app is not working. They won't say Claude is not working or ChatGPT is not working. That is number one. Number two, when we talk about access, you need to have all the global players together, because everyone is affected unilaterally, like in geopolitical scenario also, right? If you take a unilateral decision, we have seen how much economic havoc it causes.
Oh,
right?
yes.
All the stock markets being, all the petrol prices going up, right? And now we are moving towards a different industry altogether, which is growing at an exponential rate, which the world has never seen before. So all these things have a different implications. And like, with China factor also coming into this thing, right? Chinese people are, developing their models,
Sure.
right? And but talking about India or other global players, like other countries, right? We don't have the compute, as of now, right? We don't have a lot of money flowing into our, like AI labs into India. So now once we start thinking in that direction, that is what, like a lot of this, debate has started, like building sovereign models. But building sovereign model and catching up to the level where US and China are, it is going to take us a lot of time. And by the time we catch up, the advantage which we had in terms of AI, right, it will be gone. So
Fair point.
access.
So access is something that
should be available to everyone.
Right. Sorry, Amrit, complete your thought. Complete your thought.
Please. And this should be made in a what should I say? In a democratic way, not unilateral way. That basically remove the trust in the entire system. Now I do a lot of B2B training. Now I cannot recommend people to use Claude or some other foreign model. I would recommend them to locally host your models, or try building an SLM specific to your industry, let's say edtech or manufacturing. So this is something which breaks the trust. So yeah, we should work in that direction, building trust and taking decisions in a more democratic way.
Ramesh, I would like for you to answer Amrut with making the case that sovereignty was always the only serious strategy and access first thinking was a comfortable so-called, well, for the lack of a better word, delusion.
Yes, sovereignty was always, we were talking about it, I think, right from, I think 2-3 years ago. You remember Nilekani was suggesting that we concentrate on the application layer alone, but people were talking about this one. It is not anything new. We were, in my view, it was not a big surprise I was more concerned. I wanted to know what is the reason behind it. Like if it was, as I said, if it was solely on the vulnerability issue, and I am with the restriction right now till they fix it. Okay, I don't want it to be a major problem tomorrow for all our banks and insurance companies
Sure.
and this and that and all. But if it was more a national security type of thing that they did, then I am not surprised, and we have to be prepared for this. I am talking about all other countries too. On sovereignty issue, there is nothing, there is no way, because remember, so we end of the day, it's all geopolitics in this world.
Agreed.
Okay, okay. Right now, as either it's oil or GPUs or technology or anything, aircraft or anything, the countries do use it. Now, China also, for example, had. I'm just going, like giving you an example. Reliance wanted to start making solar cells, and China banned the companies from exporting the solar
Sure.
equipment
Sure.
a few months ago. Okay, they played this politics. We should not be surprised. These countries, all countries, they do that. Therefore, we have to be prepared from the sovereignty angle. Just like for AI, we need to have solar equipment made in India or something else, because India is a huge country. It's not like Bangladesh or
Correct.
Sri Lanka or something. So I agree with you. Sovereignty has to be taken into account. I have no disagreement from Amrit on that point. Absolutely, yes.
So you believe that it should not be unilateral, it should be democratic.
Democratic but we cannot assume one thing. I am being very this thing. We cannot assume that countries do follow that in that principle. We have to be prepared for that. I'm saying I agree with you. It can,
Fair.
but when it comes to like a rare earth, for example,
Yes.
China blocks rare earths. Okay, it blocks to America, it blocks to India, it blocks to everywhere. That's how they play their game. That's how it is. You have to play your game. I mean, play your cards. Therefore, I'm not surprised at it. We have to think long term and see what is the option, what is the backup for India in such scenario.
Okay. You two gentlemen know this, that given the recent developments, the unfortunate leak which took place as far as the NEET paper was concerned, the Indian government has taken a stance by blocking Telegram, because that is their last measure to ensure that this time around, the exams go on uninterrupted and in the best way possible. Just a thought that I thought I'll share with you, that India is also
Exactly.
blocking now. Anyway, I'd like to come to this point now, and I want to start with a quote. They came to every fork in the road and took the wrong fork. That is actually how one source has described Anthropic's choices this week. Now, was the choice ever really theirs? That's the question I would like for us to now open up this discussion to. Amrit, I'll start with you. I would like for you to please argue that this was a one-off political flashpoint and not evidence of how frontier AI will be governed going forward, because that's what you believe in. It should be not unilateral. Do you feel that moving forward, it'll turn democratic? And then accordingly, I'll come to Ramesh. By the time, Ramesh, I come to you, you can, of course, go ahead and mull over this, which is this the preview? And every enterprise and government building on a foreign model has just gotten a glimpse of their own future. But till I come to you, Amrit, please, I would like to start with you first.
Yeah. So, like, my opinion is a lot of these AI companies, right? They do it for marketing as well. So I was just reading one article also, because Anthropic is coming with the IPO,
Yes.
right? Now what happens is, once they block a model saying, it is so good that it cannot be released to the public, so that automatically increases their IPO valuations, that because they have made something very great which sooner or later they are going to be releasing.
You know,
right?
the irony
So,
of that, I'll just add to something what you were just talking about, Amrit, which is this. It was released in a closed manner, in a phased manner through Glasswing. That was one. Secondly, Dario Mode, only a few weeks back, is championing the cause that every government should have a kill switch if a model goes out of hand. And then the irony of it all, that Mythos and Fable 5 get banned. So I'm just adding to what you're talking about, because according to me, if Mythos is that good, why don't you use it at a price to help humanity at a larger scale, if it's that powerful a model?
Yeah. Now, adding to that, helping humanity, I would say there are a lot of discussions around data centers and everything also, right? The amount of water they consume, right? I was just reading another report, right? That said, the amount of water they are going to be consuming, the data centers, they are going to be equivalent to combined, consumption of sub-African countries. Like that is the amount of water they are going to be consuming. And talking about the heat which they are going to be producing,
True.
right? They are going to be creating heat islands also, they are saying. And the temperature they are saying is 2 to 9 degrees centigrade. And the third thing is the amount of electricity they consume. And talking about
But they are companies,
things,
by the way, as far as the data center situation is concerned, they are companies which are very aggressively, constantly working towards providing cooling solutions. They're constantly trying to work towards that, because let's face it, compute capacity is not going to go anywhere. So we can
Exactly.
keep debating this in terms of data centers till the cows come home. But the point is, it is a necessary evil, I feel, moving forward. The best way is how can we kind of deal with it?
Exactly. Now, talking about the sovereignty aspect, right, and talking about from the India's perspective, like these things are no doubt, they are very necessary. And you were talking about the cooling solutions, right? Satya Nadella was talking about these new data centers in Wisconsin, I guess, where the amount of water used by the data centers are just, which is used by the restaurants, right? But the major argument is that technology, will that be available in India? Like when they are
Fair
setting
point.
up data centers.
Fair point.
I have actively, all these big, big techs, right? All of them have been wanting to set up data centers, because I visit a lot of colleges as well. So they are also, in talks with these colleges to set up data centers in their campuses. So my question is, like the technology which is available in US, will that same technology will be deployed in India? And number two, the requirement,
If
water
they are
consumption
making
is
an
more.
investment, let's say Google is making an investment of $15 billion in Vizag, trust me, Amrit, that technology will come. It will come gift wrapped, because that investment again is coming from a global giant into India.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But talking about the water availability in India, majority of the
True.
major cities, right, the water scarcity is alarming. And talking about electricity, if you see, right, in major North Indian cities, right, the heat islands, if you see
Yes,
the
I
top,
agree.
I guess 100 or 200 cities were in India this summer. It is, and the electricity problem is also there. There are a lot of power cuts happening in and across, all the North Indian states, right?
But coming
So
back to
all these,
Mythos, let's say if I want to come back to Mythos, the argument which I requested you to make, I would like for you to please shed light on that. In terms of, do you feel at the end of the day, whatever I was talking to you about was on the lines of the fact that where does the entire sovereignty bit come into the picture?
like,
That's the argument I wanted you to make. We went into data center, which of course is a very important conversation as well.
by sovereignty aspect, can you elaborate on this
I'll
question?
just tell you exactly what I had asked you in terms of the question, which was this. Was this, according to you, the ban on Mythos, a one-off political flashpoint and not evidence of how frontier AI will be governed going forward? Do you feel this was just a big blowout between the US government and Anthropic, but it is not something which will become the norm? That's the argument I would like for you to make, because it's affecting you.
Got it. So yeah, my opinion is, see, this is one of the events I would want to believe that it is one of the event and it could not continue. But given the political scenario, global scenario, right, and the leadership and the decisions which are being made, right, at point blank, right, without any discussion and without keeping in mind the global repercussions, geopolitical, be it, macroeconomical, right. So we cannot be very sure about these things, right? Because the leadership in US, right, like Trump administration, right? So tomorrow they might come up with something else as well.
Yeah, you never
right?
know
Given
what
the
he
scenario.
comes up with, because yeah, he can just wake up on one side of the bed and yeah.
Exactly. So this has set a precedent, right? Once it has happened, then it can happen again as well. But yeah, ideally, I hope it doesn't, become a, norm, and it is one-off event.
Okay, then Ramesh, I want to come to you because you started with this entire aspect of the fact that, you know, maybe if it was not national security, then you were saying that it needs to basically not be banned. That I understand, which then I would like for you to develop on. As Amrit just mentioned, that it should not be a norm going forward, but it should be a wake-up call. What are your thoughts? Is this the fact that every enterprise and government building on a foreign model just kind of got a glimpse of what can happen to their near future?
Yes, I do agree. First of all, let me tell you, it will be, I think it's a one-off. I don't think
Fair. Why do you
the
say that?
government is going.
Why do you say that?
Why I say that is because US, the Trump administration also knows that stopping that access means you are not propagating American stack across the world,
Makes
like
sense?
the internet. Why did in 2001, why did America created all these massive tech companies? It's
Sure.
because it went through like the Amazons, the Googles, and all that stuff. You know, it spread across the world. Um, then mobile thing happened, iPhone and Android that spread, and mobile applications spread across the world. Therefore, the American tech, the mobile stack platforms spread across the world. And then the social media, the Metas, the LinkedIn's, the
True.
all of them, they. But I think they have they follow the same strategy. Now it comes to AI. Okay, so I think there will be a tremendous pressure from the technology industry itself. Okay,
There will be a
not
lot of
to
pushback according to you.
push back on that. Therefore, I don't think it will happen very often, or it may not. That's why I want one official release from the administration of them saying, hey, this is the problem, this is the vulnerability, we want to fix it, and we want to get away, and that will clear a lot of stuff. Okay, and therefore that's why I'm thinking it's one off. The second point is, remember, Atmanirbhar is great, but we cannot be Atmanirbhar on everything. It's not possible because how can we?
I don't think
the
any
entire
country
stack-
can be, to be honest.
cannot be exactly. Therefore, what happens is we cannot do away with tomorrow, like Amrit using GPT 5.5 or something, or Gemini something, because each one have their own have their own features and things like that. Therefore, we are sort of make use of it. We have to concentrate on the application where that's where the most of the 80% of the TAM, the total addressable market is. That's where it is. Therefore,
Fair point.
I have a
Okay.
okay.
I'll like
Therefore,
to.
what happens is,
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, coming back, yes, we have to have some sovereignty issue. It's a one-off thing. I don't think it's a continuous thing. But we have to create our own sovereignty stack slowly and steadily. I do agree. At the same time, we need to have access has to be there, and the companies, Indian companies and application companies and all other should have access to these models and cannot say, hey, we'll look inside our own thing and then start doing things, because that's not good, because these models are going to go better and better and better.
Agreed.
And if we have to take advantage of it, that we have to continuously have access to these models.
Okay.
Therefore,
I'll take up from where Amrit left off. Amrit, I'll come back to you, but let me just continue with Ramesh for a second, because he talked about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Amrit made a very valid point. He talked about the fact that if they've done it once, they could do it again. Whereas what you're saying, Ramesh, is because of the sheer economics of it, the companies would not well take this lying down. Anthropic would not take this lying down. Maybe a Google, if tomorrow it was in the crosshairs, etc. There will be a pushback as far as the government is concerned. So I get that. Now, these are two opposite points that you guys are making. But what Amrit said was a wake-up call. If they've done it once, they could do it again. Which then, Ramesh, makes me want to ask you this. Building frontier AI requires capital. If you're talking about, let's becoming Atmanirbhar, talent, energy, and compute, and that too at a significant amount of scale. Almost no country outside maybe 2 or 3 or 4, 5 maximum can muster all of that. So I would like for you to understand, I would like for you to please tell us, sovereign AI is now a strategic necessity for India. Definitely. And you need to make a case that we at the end of the day need it more than probably what we needed, let's say about 2 years back, because of this wake-up call.
Sorry. Yeah, I do agree. I'm not denying it. That's why the Sarvams and the Bharat Gens and other are.
By the way, wonderful development for Sarvam, gentlemen.
300
HCL
million.
Tech invested in Sarvam, which I thought was a great fillip as far as
Yep.
things moving forward is concerned. So yeah, I just thought I'll bring that up. That's a proud moment.
HCL Tech invested in
Correct.
others, and now that's great. That's why that is going on parallel. I'm not saying, but again, Sarvam. Now I don't know whether we are talking on that topic, but the sovereign AI, no one is disputing we should that we should stop sovereign AI. No.
But then the hurdles, the challenges, how do you feel we should address it?
The challenges are there. The challenges are there. That's where I want to be a practical guy rather than be, just an optimist. How are we going to? I'm talking about the Indian, from the Indian company's point. How are we going to they're going to $800 billion are being spent by the hyperscalers this year, 600 billion
Correct.
or 700 billion this year. Okay, next year it's the same thing, and it's not possible to get that much investment in India because India is a 4 trillion economy compared to a 32 trillion economy.
Agreed.
Per capita income $3,000 versus $93,000. Therefore, therefore you have to play the battles at our own level. I would say, Sarvam has to concentrate on Indic languages, on all Indian hospital data, for example, to be on
Fair.
On the what is, so that it will help Indian researchers on tropical diseases for the African countries which share the same type of diseases and
so
weather.
India-centric problems is what you're talking about.
India-centric, and also not only India-centric, but the global South, as they call nowadays.
Okay.
The global South.
By the way,
Okay.
I'll just add to what you're talking about, Ramesh. As far as Sarvam is concerned, Vivek was on front page, the other show that we do, that I do, and he did mention very categorically that with this investment, they are also looking at expanding on compute capacity. I just thought that I'll add that to what you were talking about.
Oh, that's great.
I would like to add
Please go ahead.
Ramesh's one point, like about huge investment needed in the building these LLMs, right? If you see DeepSeek, that was made at a fraction of cost of what like ChatGPT or Claude were made. If
Ramesh, I think he's answering your question. Amrit is answering your question in terms of the sheer levels of investment. Amrit is fighting back. Please go ahead, Amrit.
Yeah. So they were able to build it, and I know many friends of mine who are also building it from India only in the Indic language. You might also know them, Sudhir, the Socket Lab guys,
yes.
and, many other folks. So what they are saying, the major challenge in terms of that is, the compute that is available and the VCs. The VCs are, in India play very safe game. They don't want to be, investing into deep techs. And, if they don't see, so that is where the major challenge is. It is not about talent and investment. Also, if you see, we don't need, like 600 billion or like that level of investment. We can do it at a fraction of cost, because if China has done it, right, we can 100% do it. So that is also gone. Apart from that, government should also, we need government support as well in terms of compute.
Policy for sure.
The major challenge in building a sovereign AI is compute, availability of compute, which is not available in India because the H100 chips or the
But
other
how
chips
would you answer valid points made by Ramesh? $800 billion is what is being spent. That scale, he talked about very categorically, $4 trillion economy, Visa actually $4.72 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, anyway, vis-a-vis a $42 or $43 trillion economy. Those are very valid points.
Yes. But my thing is, like, if China has done it in fraction of cost, and we launched Gaganyaan also, right, at a fraction of a cost. NASA takes, billions of dollars for launching this thing. So we Indians have this capacity. So we can do that, if that much money has been spent by US companies, that doesn't mean we also have to spend that much money.
Okay.
If little bit of risk from the company end and little bit of more support from the government, and like making it a priority in terms of policy making, like because having AI.
Okay, so what is lacking? Let's say policy-wise, what is lacking? And then of course I'll come back to you, Ramesh. But what is lacking, Amrit, according to you? Because one thing that comes to my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, we as a country for the longest amount of time have been an Indian IT services foundational framework, which honestly, nothing wrong with that. It's been an engine which has built our country in a big way, for sure. That's wonderful. But point now is, do you think it's about time that we actually start to shift in a big way? And what are you going to do about the behemoths that we have, the big Indian IT companies? Because that's also a big point for you to consider. So if you're talking about a middle path, what do you mean by that?
No, 100%. The big Indian IT companies also, if you see it, they are also adopting to this AI way. If you see majority of the Indian companies, I'm not sure, like TCS or, they showed profit, right, using AI. So all the Indian IT companies have to, relook into their models of operation, from the service-based company to develop a new
But do you
mode of
think
operation.
they can battle an OpenAI, they can battle an Anthropic, they can do that? That's the question I'm asking you.
Yes, 100%. What is the amount of money they are investing into R&D? They are like majority of the money which is going, right, that is going into operations or like delivering the products only. Like they should start allocating a significant budget into R&D, because see, all the people who are building these models in US, right, if you see, majority of them are Indians. Like in India, if you see in the last few years, the compensations have been, there are pretty competitive compensations, and many of our friends have been, moving from US to India, right? So, but the Indian IT giants, right, they also have to allocate a huge budget towards R&D. And there's 100%, you asked me, right, is it possible? I would say 100% possible. There needs to be an intent and stronger, what should I say? Policy push, and, intent also from all these people towards the urgency of doing it. Because see, AI is now being used in wars also. And, after the Pahalgam incident, right, recently, right, we would definitely 100% need, and from that perspective also we should start looking at it. Yeah, and we can do it 100%, and yeah, we are capable of doing it. It's just a matter of time,
But the point is, Ramesh, I would like for you to probably retort to what Amrit just talked about. He's talked about, yes, the talent is there. He cited China's example, DeepSeek, etc. He's also talked about a great policy push. But well, you're the man with the numbers right now in terms of $800 billion, etc., which are huge numbers, and they're all facts. So what is your thought? Will we be able to do it in terms of what Amrit is proposing?
Yes. I differ with Amrit on one thing. China, first of all, China's numbers are suspect, because remember, DeepSeek, a lot of Sam Altman, Satya, and I think others have sort of pushed that thing, saying that they didn't spend. Okay. Now in China, what happens is, China, instead of the VCs, they have the Chinese government. Chinese government invests a lot of money. I mean, no one can invest like the Chinese government in the world today. Okay. And the numbers are, whether it's the EVs, batteries, models, or anything, okay, it's all subsidized by the Chinese government. Okay. Now,
but there is a great push as far as India is concerned, as far as the semiconductor mission is concerned, Ramesh. Let's not forget, there is a lot of push there.
I agree. I'm not coming back why I'm talking about the Amrit's point that, China developed with a very, we cannot trust on Chinese numbers, because, what it is. And the second thing is, in India, the government cannot provide like 300 billion like the Chinese government can do, because the real fact is, because it's a different economy. It's a 20 trillion economy versus a 4 trillion. I'm talking about approximately 5 times more. Okay. We cannot do that. And if you are talking about, let's take the 5-layered cake as what Jensen Wang says, where you have to be Atmanirbhar. Let's say we have to be Atmanirbhar. You have to be all the 5. Okay.
Agreed.
For the land, there isn't much difference. The land in India is not much different in prices, let's say, than the rural US or rural China. Okay, whatever. Okay, and the other thing is then
apart
it comes
from the
to
size,
energy.
let's be clear. Apart from the size, that's I mean, comparing China and us geographically is what I would just
Geographic, exactly. Yeah, that's true. And the other thing is, I'm talking about in the 5-layer cake. Then energy, the turbines, all those all those electrical grade, lot of stuff is pretty much, if not the difference, it probably an Indian company might get 30% cheaper. It's not like it will be like, let's say for example, if a US company spends $100, doesn't mean we can get that electric grid done for $10. It may be about $50 or $60, something like that. This thing.
Okay.
And it comes to GPUs, it's the same cost in GPUs. GPUs doesn't
GPUs,
matter.
of course, right now.
In fact, the data center building and steel and all is not the most expensive part.
It's the GPUs.
That's only 10 to 11% of the. It's the 60% of the data center is the GPUs.
Yes.
Okay, and that is not, you cannot get it done. Like in a small level. Then you're talking about routers and this and software
Fair
and
point.
all that. And who
Fair
are
point.
handling all these things? It's the Cisco's, it's the Qualcomm's. Therefore, their pricing is will be pretty much the same. I'm not saying there may be some, given India, there may be some, lower level, some discount or something like that. But it won't be like 10% of what they charge for an American data center for.
38, sorry, I'll just add to what Ramesh is talking about, Amrut. Maybe then you can retort to Ramesh. He's right. 38,000 GPUs. That's all as far as the India animation is talking about in terms of allocation. XAI, just one company, and by the way, that 38,000 is allocated to various companies, right? Now, XAI alone has more than 100,000 GPUs, or maybe more, in terms of the overall situations. So, I mean, okay. So then the question I have for the both of you, what the figures that he's spoken about. Now, should we actually kind of maybe look at a middle path? We know that these are huge challenges as far as India is concerned for right now. How about we turn those challenges into our advantage? For example, do you feel, Amrut, we could have collaborations? Do you feel that we need to probably, like we just did with France, should we actually start to widen our horizons, not just be specific and only focused as far as the United States is concerned? The India Innovates 2026 happened recently. There were lots of MOUs which were announced. We are going beyond defense as far as our collaboration with France is concerned. We, of course, I had quoted the CEO of Mistral. I'd spoken about him. So do you feel somewhere maybe that might be a good way moving forward? Not just be dependent on the big frontier labs as on date.
Yes, 100%. Like we should start, like at a government level also, we should start exploring Europe. Like as you said, right, Mistral is a good option, and otherwise also. And as Ramesh sir was saying, right, like Chinese models you cannot depend, and there are a lot of restrictions also, right, sharing data with them. So, but some of the local models which you can, download locally, we can start using them. And at a application layer or at the startups who are using, right, we should start exploring, the models which are, local, which can be deployed locally and, don't have much dependency on these things, because, we have to make ourselves future proof to all these, possibilities.
So basically, I want to ask you this, Amrit. Should India stop pretending? Because you were, of course, talking about the fact that there's a sense of positivity. Yes, I also feel it as a patriot. I would love for us to go ahead and become, solely sovereign. But I know also that I'm fooling myself, given the fact that the kind of challenges they are in the given amount of time that we... So should we stop pretending? And what should we do? That's what I'm asking.
We should start exploring collaborations like with, Europe and, any other region which is doing good in this direction. And, going ahead with that and, having a, what should I say, a clear, roadmap towards how do we achieve, sovereignty, not now, if not now, over a period of time, let's say,
Fair
3
point.
years, 5 years or 10 years on the line, we should have a roadmap towards that. And meanwhile, we can explore, these possibilities. And apart from that, all the education institutions, right, IITs and IISCs, right, they should actively start looking into, creating these models at a cheaper rate. Like, at least start working towards it, right? We cannot ignore that part of it, right? If they have done it at a cost, at a higher cost. As I was giving an example of, ISRO, right? We launched
Fair.
that, Mangal, we launched satellites at a very, fraction of the cost of which NASA does, right? So we should start looking at that perspective also, enable our, institutions more towards that direction. So these are 2-3 things which I think, we should start doing.
Okay. Ramesh, generally speaking, there has been this constant aspect about the fact that India has been an app economy. We should really start to focus as far as models are concerned, etc. Now, Vivek of Sarvam, who was on front page, mentioned something which I thought made a lot of sense. He said that India should actually, and generally speaking, the mindset should now tilt towards the fact that we are building frontier -1 models. And what Amrit is just talking about, if we can't achieve sovereignty immediately, then maybe we can go ahead and set ourselves a deadline, and not us, the government. We say, all right, we give ourselves 6 years, 7 years. And the fact that we need to achieve this, and this is what we are going to do about it. We're going to be transparent. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Because it's easy for us to go ahead and have this very wonderful debate, etc. But when you speak with the leaders of these companies, like a Sarvam, and they're putting in their blood and sweat into a lot of things, and they're facing a lot of challenges. So, what do you think about frontier -1 models as an approach?
Okay. First time I'm hearing the term frontier -1, but I hope you're thinking, you're mentioning it like SLM, small language model.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that should be the way initially for us, right? Next 4-5 years, get that one, SLMs, Indic languages, India data, India specific data, and make sure to solve India's problems. That should be the thing. Yes, I absolutely. It doesn't need that much compute. We don't need like SpaceX's XAI has got like 200,000 data center. Processors. We don't. That much is not needed in one place. So yes, training will be much cheaper, and inference will be much cheaper. That's the way to go. Absolutely, there is no need to go right away with the frontier model. That's my feel.
Okay.
I used to think like that. I disagreed with Nandan Nilekani 2 years ago. But now when I look at the money these companies are putting, it's going to be a catch up all the time, and it is not going to be, as I was telling, where I differ with Amrit is, in some areas we can be cheaper by whatever 70-80% than America, but not in this type of hardware, because this hardware costs the same whether you are putting that hardware in Vizag or in Nagpur or in Wisconsin. That hardware that is costing the same. Therefore, we cannot reduce. And that hardware is 65% of a data center is the chips and the related stuff. So
fair enough.
SLM doesn't need that many GPUs, or it may not even need GPUs. Probably could go with CPUs. I don't know. That is something the experts can analyze it. But certainly you don't need that much compute, and inference will be a lot cheaper. That's the way to go. SLM, and
what are your thoughts, Amrit?
It will have a tremendous effect. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Maybe that could be the first baby step that we start taking.
No, 100%. Like many of our friends have started, working on SLMs, and basically industry specific, SLMs as well. Like, a model which is specific for education sector, or let's say a model which is specific for health sector. Right. That way it is, more focused, and we can depend on it. So that is 100% a way forward.
Because at some level or the other, that is where we are going to start to progressively reduce our dependency. That's the way I'm thinking, gentlemen. One.
Yes.
Two, we have very specific India-specific problems, right?
Yes.
So how about we actually start to concentrate on those issues instead of just chasing this entire thought of, the giants, etc., whatever. And whatever we are being able to then deliver as solutions, let's then go ahead and export that to the rest of the world. How about we actually completely turn the entire situation on its head? What is your thought then, Amrit, on this?
No, 100%. Like, the majority, as we were discussing in the initially as well, right? The AI has brought us to the same level. So now we can build for the, all the products. And if you see all the startups who are building in from Bangalore or India, right? They are building for the global, customers only. So talking about how.
But then how do we build? If suddenly, the American government turns around and says, all right, listen, I'm not going to share these models with you. What do you do then? Then maybe the collaboration comes in with other countries.
Yeah, collaboration comes in, and maybe use open source model, but yeah, make them more capable. We have to spend in R&D. Like that R&D is the major thing. Right now we don't have a solution. As of now, I cannot tell you what we should do. The only thing which we can do is
would you switch? Let's say you were building something on Claude, fine?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a direct question on this. Would you have switched the moment you got to know that there was a ban on Claude, as we understood? Would you have switched to Alibaba WAN 2.2? Would you have done that?
No,
Why
because
that,
the dependency is so high. The dependency is so high, right? The output which we get, right, and and building the entire model, all the LLMs are indeterministic. The output which you're gonna get are different, right? And when you change the model, the outputs are gonna change again, right? So you tune the entire system, and once you change the model, right, it spoils the entire experience at the customer level also, right? So
what if you didn't have a choice, Amrit?
Then 100% it will be a loss for me, right? Like it will be loss in terms of man hours, right? It will be loss in terms of.
So do you think a better approach is to actually always have plan B in terms of the fact that, because I'm only saying that because of the fact that what's happened can happen again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And it is going to hurt Anthropic as far as moving forward is concerned in terms of probably its, I don't know, economics. I don't know, in terms of probably the sales, call it whatever. But, and maybe Anthropic did not do this. I mean, it was just whatever it was. But has it not somewhere hurt your trust on a model?
Yes, 100%. It has hurt the trust, and going forward, we'll be very cautious. See, but right now you don't have any other option also, right? As you said, I cannot use Alibaba or DeepSeek also. We are very hesitant to use, why we pay premium also. Like if you see Claude and ChatGPT models, they are not cheap. They are very expensive as compared to other models, right? But still we end up paying these, hefty amount because of the security, enterprise security they provide, right? Because majority of the companies are worried about their data, right?
Why I used the example of, Ramesh, why I used the example of Alibaba WAN 2.2 was because of this reason. It was subsidized by the government of India, and Avatar has just built on Alibaba WAN 2.2 their video model, which is called Varya. That is why I thought that I will bring that into the conversation.
Okay. You're asking me?
No, I was just putting that point across to the both of you.
Yeah.
Because logically, what are you going to do as you move forward, Amrit and Ramesh? I mean, if tomorrow there is going to be a crisis like this, then what to do?
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so basically this crisis is for everyone, right? So in the entire industry, the crisis will be there. So the going ahead, how we are planning to deal with it is, be cautious. Number one, have a plan B, right? And build our systems in such a way that they are not affected much by these, random blockages, and take time. Like if something is released in a week ago, not incorporate that, immediately, or, have plan B in place, always have plan B in place, and, look at the adoption from a very careful point of view, how your customer experience is not much dependent on the LLM which you are using. Like we have to design our systems in such a way.
Fair enough. Ramesh, I want to come to you. When I talked about, a collaboration probably with France, etc. Now, Mensch's argument, as I had mentioned earlier through his quote, is also that you cannot truly own, inspect, audit, or improve a system that exists entirely behind someone else's interface. Fair? Now, Amrit and I were talking about collaborations with France. This is Mistral. Now, I would like for you to probably shed light on open weight models are now the only credible foundation for any country's sovereign AI strategy. Is that the way forward? Because we were just discussing Alibaba WAN 2.2. Is that how we need to go forward?
It can be one path. I don't think it is. I don't think this whole thing is like this way or that way. I think it should be a combination. On some applications, you need to go with the closed
Fair.
model, some on the open model. For example, I don't think, let's say, for example, the SBI, like the banking or
Oh,
some
no, yeah.
critical, they cannot go with the open models of the Chinese thing. Okay, some small applications, something, yeah, they can go. I'm not denying it. And we cannot even avoid, let's say if Indian companies want to become the cursor of the world tomorrow or something else tomorrow, you have to have access to these American models. Otherwise, that itself, it will not be a global product. You got my point?
Sure.
If you want to be a global product, I'm talking about an application here. I'm not talking about a model development like Sarvam here. Let's assume some company wants to develop some very good applications or sitting on the thing. They have to have access to the Claude or the Open AIs or the
Yes.
Geminis, or they have to use it, because even Llama, for example, remember the latest model is going closed.
Correct.
The latest model of Meta is going closed. I forgot that name. It's not an open model anymore.
Fair.
The new open models, NVIDIA has come up with a Nimitron or something like that, which is an open model, which you can use it. Now, Amrit, you should try that one. NVIDIA has an open model called Nimitron or something like that.
Yes,
which
yes.
is very
Nimitron.
cheap,
Yes.
which is very, very cheap also. And the advantage of using that is you are accessing the NVIDIA GPU's capacity, because the models are basically that. Therefore, that's the advantage for you. Okay. Now, it's not. I don't believe this. Like we cannot ignore. Remember, also, end of the day, America is the biggest market in the world. We have to sell. Who is going? What is the use if we develop all these things
See your
and cannot?
point.
And American companies are, I'm sure, they will not allow a Quen or a Alibaba or whatever DeepSeek to be used and
Yeah,
for their
agreed.
application. They will not. They will not. And where is the money? Where are we going to sell these? I'm talking as a developer, let's say as an application
Sure.
developer sitting
Do you agree with
in
him, Amrit?
Bangalore.
Do you agree with Ramesh? Because there is that flip
Yes.
side to it as well.
Yes, 100%. Like we have to make global products and sell in.
But he's
US.
talking about
But
the market, which is United States.
Yes, it is a big market, but India in itself is also a big market.
I agree with you.
The AI
There's a huge
and
population,
AI.
Ramesh. Let's not forget. We've only scratched the surface.
But where I differ is, Amrit, let's take for example, I'm just giving you a very simple thing. I hope you understand. Like, let's say social media platforms. Okay, the most of their money, where do they generate on the social media? They get generated in the Western world. 80%. Okay, number of users in India are the maximum on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp.
Fair.
Okay, all of them. But the revenue, Meta says, is very small. Okay, at least right now, because remember we are a low per capita income country. Your application tomorrow, for you, if you can make it for the US market, you have a much bigger revenue than for the Indian addressable market. Okay, I am not saying numbers wise India is the biggest, no doubt about it. Numbers wise, absolute, but the value wise, it's not. Therefore, we cannot, a developer and a company sitting in Bangalore if they have to make money, if they have to scale, they have to address the US market or the next European market. They cannot address only the Indian market.
Do you agree? What are who are your customers, Amrit? Are they local? Are they global? Would you be excited to have a mix of both?
No, right now we train a lot of Indian folks only. But yeah, we do have few cohorts where people from US, Europe have been joining, right? So yeah, I agree to Ramesh, sir. Like that. We have to. US, like the per capita income is more, the revenue. If you see all the Indian startup founders, they want to sell in US only, because they say in India the appetite is not there for any product they build, right? The Indian founders, the Indian companies are not willing to pay that much as much as in US. Okay, but having said that, but after US, which is the largest, biggest market after US and Europe, the third biggest market I would say is India only. That is why all these companies, right, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, they have been actively setting up, their centers within India. Right? Why? Because India is a considerably big market. Like US might be number top 1, but yeah, India definitely comes under top 5. Right? And coming to the second point, the penetration of AI in India is right now very superficial. Right? Like, and it is gonna get much bigger. Like the internet penetrated. Right? Similarly, AI is also gonna penetrate a lot. So the possibilities are immense. Right? And as you said, right, Indian problems are different and US problems are different. Right?
Always
and building for the Indian is very different from building for the US context. So yeah, it depends on what you are solving for. Are you solving for India? That is a founder's perspective. What you want to do. From our perspective, our mission is to make India AI ready. That is why we are very actively into educating folks and training people into AI. Right, be it college folks, and majority of our participants in our workshops are women. Right, 90% of them are women. So we want India to be AI ready. That is where we have been contributing, be it Women in Product India, be it Future Minds Institute. So yeah, from my perspective, India itself is a huge market, and we should focus on that as well, because India's problems are different. But yeah, having said that, US is also a big, and like we have to build a product which is global.
Okay. In closing, gentlemen, both of you, I personally feel governance, export controls, international collaborations, honestly, none of it is ever going to get perfectly settled. Now, I would like for you to close this out and do it very plainly. Can a nation truly call itself AI powered if it does not control the intelligence it depends on? I'd like to start with you, Amrit.
I would say no, we cannot call ourselves, AI powered if we don't control the, intelligence, because any day, what should I say? A letter would be sent to a company and asking them to reduce, shut it down. Like there were talks also, right? Like what if tomorrow Google comes and says, you cannot use Gmail, right? And there was a huge push for adopting Zoho's, email. Even president, Indian government was supporting that.
Yes, we did, by the way.
Yeah,
exactly, to switch to Zoho ecosystem, right? So yeah, so we cannot call ourselves as AI sovereign or AI powered unless and until we start we have control over it, right? External control is always bad, and for a country like India, which is so huge, and we are positioning ourselves as global leaders, right? So we should be having a lot of control in our hand rather than depending on other people, other other foreign policies and other whims.
Final thoughts, Ramesh?
absolutely. I agree with Amrit. Without the in the 5 stack layer, as Johnson always says, at least we need to have at least 2 or 3, if not the 5. I'm not saying it's possible all the 5. At least 2 or 3 we should, and that should be good enough for a start right now. And over a period of time, yes, we should aim for the whole 5 stack layer control.
And a deadline has to be set somewhere, Ramesh, given the fact that the Mythos ban?
Exactly, there should be a deadline, but again, Sudeep, where is in technology, how can we draw a deadline?
No. I'm talking about, let's say, building compute capacity, for example, in India.
Building compute capacity,
set a method to it, set an understand. Yeah. I'm talking about those factors.
Absolutely.
Okay, now this is my final take. Sorry, you were saying, Amrit?
it should be a government priority to, take, like, obviously India has been paying more attention to it, but yeah, like, take it more seriously after this incident. And we have the talent. I'm very positive, we would definitely become sovereign, AI sovereign in the coming time.
I will say this in conclusion, this is my thought. National interest will not only cut it. I personally feel enterprises in across through the length and breadth of India need to actually start to adopt in a big way.
Yes.
It will encourage our own internal ecosystem to start to move towards building models. Because let's be honest, if you're a startup founder, Amrit, which you are, then at the end of the day, you will be so encouraged if you get a wonderful purchase order from one of the big IT companies to do something. Am I right? Am I wrong? I think somewhere
No,
it is our internal adoption which needs to happen from the enterprise level. The policy is being backed. The government is trying to do its best. But also I feel that mindset change has to start to happen where we actually start to believe that we are moving towards sovereignty.
Yes, I agree.
That's the way I would like to end it.
Absolutely. Execution is important. Execution. More than we have policies on the AI mission policy, everything is good. It's like Europe. Europe has got great documents done, okay? And but they haven't created major companies other than SAP in 1971. After
Correct.
1971, they haven't created major company. Major I'm talking about. I'm not talking about small companies, okay? Whereas in US there is in US there is no documentation, there is no formal this thing, there is nothing, but it's just that the companies come up like it keeps cropping up year after year, okay? That's what we need to do, is just leave it the environment and make it,
encourage
let
the
them come on the board.
ecosystem to, like
Ecosystem.
Amrit, I'm taking up Amrit's point. There is a huge market as far as India is concerned. How about we actually start to get into that entire perspective of the fact that we will encourage our own internal ecosystem to, go ahead and satisfy our own internal demand. That is probably the mindset shift, which will then consequently move towards building of models, which will move towards various other facets which will come into the picture. Maybe that will also push the government. That's my thought.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on Point Break. I just truly hope that we were able to break the points down as best as we could. And Amrit and Ramesh, we'll of course want to bring you back. And let's just truly hope that this discussion at some level or the other has some sort of an impact on the larger consciousness moving forward. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So only days ago, TCS announced it was cutting 12,200 jobs. That's about 2% of its global workforce. And the stock, dropped over 1% to a fresh low. In the same week, American companies were doing the opposite in India. Meta, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Netflix, and Google added over 32,000 jobs here in 2025 alone. Yes, that is 18% growth year on year, almost entirely through their global capability centers. That, I believe, is the split screen of Indian IT right now. The traditional services model is starting to shrink. The GCC model is accelerating. Now, India's roughly 2,100 plus GCCs already generate close to $68 billion plus in value and employ more than 2 million professionals. And, Nancy Bhatt's own projection is that this could, more than double over to 4 million people by 2035. Nancy Bhatt is Managing Director, Protiviti member firm for India, and it's truly a pleasure to have her join me on Front Page exclusively to shed light in terms of what the road ahead is truly looking like. Welcome to Front Page, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Sudhi. Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure being here today.
It truly is a pleasure to have you with us on Front Page. The fact that you're a very important voice in terms of the entire ecosystem. I would love for you to actually tell us in terms of are we headed in the right direction. But before I do that, I have to obviously start with your quote. And I quote, "These centers are not just back offices anymore, they're driving innovation, research and development, analytics and digital transformation." End quote. Now, so basically, Nancy, picking up from where you left off in that quote, what actually has changed and how different is the GCC's mandate today from what it was, well, sold as, let's say, a decade ago?
It's a big change, Sudhi. It's exciting times for GCCs. The journey started, more than 20 years ago when we started with what we called it as ODCs, to a very dirty term in between called captives, to then GICs,
And
and
that
now
sounded
we
very
call it
ominous, captives.
yeah, it just sounds like you're just doing some
Right.
labor arbitrage sort of work.
Right.
To now GCCs and a lot of companies, at least the mature ones, are dropping the term GCC even in the industry forums and moving to Center of Excellence, innovation hubs, to something called as India Office, which I
Logically,
think is a big
honestly,
leap.
that should what needs to be called, to be honest, Nancy. Where I had an expert, a GCC leader sometime back on front page, and he actually mentioned the same thing, that any company abroad which, let's say, opens its office in San Francisco will not call it a GCC, it will call it its San Francisco office.
Yes. In fact, a Boston office or a UK
Yes.
office, but if it's open in Bangalore or Mumbai or Pune, it's called a GCC. So I think a lot of GCCs are moving away from those terms and calling it India offices, given that the kind of work that's happening is now less related to only processes, cost arbitrage, and labor arbitrage, and moving to more digital transformation. Where all the teams are now centrally aligned rather than having the India offices report to the mothership, rather than and owning the functions end to end here in India. So I think that's where the change from now GCCs to India offices, and we see a lot of value addition, ownership, global roles being set out of India. And that's the change that we've seen in GCCs. Post 2021, more than half of the GCCs that were set up were
COVID,
like
right?
AI first
COVID was a
GCC.
big point of change, do you feel?
It was, and we stood tall where we said that, the entire continuity can be managed even during those tough times. The great resignation that happened in 2021, 2022, I think the GCCs continued to flood their processes here in India, both from a cost and labor and the skill arbitrage perspective. But now that story is even changing further to make it more transformation, AI-driven center of excellence is being set up in India. But obviously, the journey has started only, I think, in the last 3-4 years.
Right.
So it's still a long way to go.
When do you see it kind of really maturing out and impacting a much larger diaspora?
I don't know if I have a number that I can, number of months or years that I can give you, but I feel in the next 2 years we would have, made a difference that's clearly visible to us, because 2 years and 3 years is what all the GCCs are taking as their personal, their own timeline where they want to transform their functions, whether it's a contact center function, whether it's a KYC function or an ops function. 2 to 3 years, all the GCCs are going to transform. So I think that's where we'll see the impact on our academia and industry collaboration as well.
Before we go deeper, since we are on the subject, let's say you're talking to a young aspirant right now, Nancy. You talked about 2 years, yes, for a lot of things to come to fruition, etc., for a lot of the maturity to take place. But what if here is an aspirant who actually is looking forward to joining a GCC? What's that one little, let's say, very quick sort of a guidance that you'd like to share with them? You talked about 3 things: thinker, AI comes right at the end, soft skills, etc. But could you probably be a little more specific so that maybe then they can start working on these things and
I think a lot of L1 and QA sort of processes are going to be taken away. So I'm not a believer of that, there is a strong sentiment in the market where we talk about job cuts and everything. I don't believe that, robots or agents will take away all the jobs. But people who cannot upskill themselves from being a customer service executive to be a customer data analyst are going to be out of jobs, right? Because the efficacy, etc., of AI agents is still very low. So everybody has to upskill themselves with the emerging technologies. and they should start as early as during their college days. And a lot of courses right now are available both inside the universities and in the
Could you
outside
name a few?
forums.
It'll make it more specific.
I think I should probably avoid naming a few courses, but within Protivity itself, Sudhi, we have made it mandatory for every level, starting from MDs to a consultant and an analyst who's starting out, to be AI upskilled.
Okay.
And we are running
fair
those
point.
programs. So I think every organization, every college is right now doing that.
Fair point.
So every young graduate should, it's a no-brainer. They have to do it. But at the same time, focus more on case study building, case study analysis. How can you present your thoughts in a more articulate way, and create more, critical thinking capacity within themselves.
Fair points. All right. Now, of course, I have another quote from you, Nancy. I believe you're very quotable. So that's what I've been doing in terms of the overall understanding. India is becoming a global source of ideas and solutions, not just execution, in quote. Now, what does revenue linked accountability, let's say, Nancy, inside a GCC actually, seem to represent? And do you feel, is India genuinely being trusted with that? Or it's just still the workload that comes with it?
I think the narrative has changed. You see a lot of, when you talk about innovation and ideas, you see a lot of CIO, or at least a CIO minus role being based in India. And a lot of, for these large financial corporations, the entire finance stack for products and platforms like Oracle and SAP, the platform owners the product owners are sitting out of India. So I think that narrative is changing, at least for the mature GCCs, I can say for sure.
Fair.
The fresh ideas are being encouraged out of India. In fact, a lot of GCCs right now, it's an interesting concept, are running AI hackathons, where all the young graduates, and you just questioned me about the young graduates, as well as the mature professionals in that 8 to 15-year bracket, are being asked to come up with use cases and ideas. And out of those, either doing it in-house or doing it with an ecosystem partner, the top 5 or 6 use cases are actually being selected. And that's being done at a global level.
Correct me if I'm wrong, which honestly also, I remember, Nancy, a few people who were on the show on Front Page, experts, had mentioned that, that's also a great avenue, hackathons, to look at future employment. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. And I think, a lot of GCCs I see in these forums are thinking to keep those AI hackathons as part of their day zero slots that they get at colleges. They want to run that and then filter out the crowd who's really fresh with ideas. Can you think critically? So that's another advice for the young graduates who are wanting employment at GCC. So having said that, a lot of ideas are coming through those use cases, and it's been run as frequently as once a quarter. And in very tech-heavy startup sort of ecosystem, it's done almost every month, where there is a new idea that has to be implemented. In fact, a lot of traditional ways of doing things, there are certain case studies that are being given up to a certain level of executives, where they can review the entire process and suggest some automations beyond AI as well. Like if there's a standardization that can be done, if there's an automation that can be done, and then we move to the AI stage. That's what is changing. And now India is one of the participants, as many other countries. So it's not like, the other countries are participating and India sort of executes it. The executives in India are also invited to participate on those hackathons. And some hackathons are India only. Like you saw the AI summit that happened, right? Pretty much all the worldwide leaders were here. So I don't think we can think of fresh ideas without taking India into the picture right now.
That's heartening to know. Which then, of course, brings me to the fact that, the cost factor, which is a very important one. Now, here's a little number for you again. A mid-level engineer in the United States now costs roughly $250,000 all in. Now, the same kind of a hire in India costs a fifth to a sixth of that. Now, Zinnov's CEO calls that particular shift, and I'm going to quote, a global neural network, end quote. Not brain drain, but capability, not proximity to headquarters, now determines where leadership actually resides. So, is this H1B driven shift structural and permanent, one, or does it reverse the moment US immigration policy changes again?
In my opinion, Sudhi, I don't think it's going to reverse what's been happening right now. And for GCCs, it's been in some shape or form a sort of a
So you
tailwind.
don't see the US immigration policy, etc.
Yeah, because I think everybody now has realized, even during COVID, where we stood tall in ensuring there was business continuity,
and
to
also
times
knowing
like
Trump,
these.
let's not forget that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's anyway going to reverse, but if it does, I think Google and Meta and Facebook and the entire GCC hiring. I remember in your opening statement you said that their hiring has increased.
Yes,
They hired about 38,000
35,000.
people, right?
That's the number.
If you actually do a comparison between the GCC hiring versus the IT service providers hiring, GCCs hired at least
Way
a half more than the
yeah.
IT firms, right? 2 lakh jobs versus 1,10,000.
Right.
So I think the companies have realized it's no more about the location and the kind of overlap that we have with US, UK.
Right.
There is some sort of overlap and follow the sun approach with US. I think it's both optimally from a cost perspective as well as scalability perspective. You can't migrate so many workers, but you can really scale here in India and set up those AI center of excellence. A lot of banks are right now exploring setting up an AI COE dedicated in India.
What kind of
a research and
challenges
development
though, Nancy? What kind of challenges which you kind of maybe foresee or predict in terms of this particular, given this entire, shift? What are the kind of challenges that might kind of come our way?
I think the major challenge would be to find the right talent in that 8 to 15-year bucket, because the graduates are there who can be upskilled. But those really good innovators in that experienced bucket could be a major challenge, and that's a challenge on the ground right now.
Right.
And therefore, that upskilling effort is really required, not only not only for the fresh graduates, but also for the mid-level and the senior level executives as well, to think more strategically, right? And therefore, a lot of these ecosystem partners are running AI strategy courses for CXOs,
right?
And they want them to be trained first versus
which is
the
a good
actual
thing,
developers.
let's be honest. Yeah, I think it's a great
It has to be
thing.
started at the top, right?
Correct. Absolutely. Because you know why? I mean, this is slightly tangential, but it's interesting that, AI at the end of the day seems to be at the center of every conversation, which is wonderful. But also at the same given point in time, a lot of enterprises are learning it the hard way. They get very excited about implementing AI, and then suddenly, when the bill arrives, as far as the compute is concerned, I mean, we saw that with Uber. So somewhere at the end of the day, I think it's important from it to come from the top, so that we actually understand the workflows, Nancy, where it's needed, and don't implement it where it's not needed. And I think that needs to come to some sort of a balance. I don't know if you agree with me.
Yes, and a lot of processes might actually be okay without AI if you do some sort of standardization and automation. And as you rightly said, most of the companies right now are going over the AI bills, which is actually more than doing those jobs manually.
Exactly.
And that's the story across. I completely agree. But that's going to be one challenge in setting up those AI center of excellence and really motivating our people to pick up to the emerging technologies, I would believe.
Fair. Which then brings me to this. Nearly half of skilled Indians on US visas say they would return home if forced to leave, per a recent, blind survey. Now, how is this reshaping not just hiring volume, but the actual leadership structures inside these centers? And let me throw this also into the mix, given the recent geopolitical developments.
There is a lot of reverse brain drain, Sudhi, I would say, in terms of given the uncertainty also, even if they're not forced. I think everybody sitting out there is quite uncertain of what's the kind of career path will they have.
Correct.
And now, given that those global opportunities and those really value addition roles can be based in India, I think it's fairly okay for people to return back home and have the same opportunities.
Sure.
There is a 30% uptick in the salaries as well, specifically for people who are technology trained.
True.
So that's a good news for
one,
people.
Right? The moment you're there to now here, so yeah.
But I think one thing, if I can say very candidly over here, is If you compare our tier 1 cities to some of the mega cities and why people move to the US, UK, or some of these,
Yes.
so there is a huge gap, right? And our tier 2
One
cities, we're
is,
talking
there is
about
a
that.
gap, honestly, Nancy, also the quality of life, let's be honest. So
Exactly,
yes,
yeah.
so those are kind of trade-offs, and especially let's say if you've been, already settled there for the last 15 plus years, or maybe, I don't know, 10 years, etc. So it's then suddenly a very rude shock.
It's a huge shift for families, for people
Yes,
to come and work in this
yes.
ecosystem and the overall environment that's being offered. So I think not everybody migrates for the kind of opportunities, because opportunities are now there in India as well. I've interacted with a lot of GCC leaders where they have the global head of internal audit sitting out of India, global head of a CFO function sitting out of India, especially for small and medium enterprises, the mid-sized GCCs. That is very, very common. But it's more of how ready you are to switch the entire ecosystem of how and where you were living. That would be a major shift.
That makes sense.
But that sort of has benefited GCCs. As I said, that now they don't need an expat to come and establish a function. There are people who have experience both in India and working in the US. And why just US? I think UK,
Correct.
Europe, and Japan as well. Because 70% of the dominance was from North America, but now we are seeing a huge shift from other geographies as well. So people who have that work experience tend to set up the functions, obviously from a skill aligned perspective, but also from a cultural aligned perspective as well. Like for a Japanese GCC, it's very important for you to align with the culture as well. Of how to
Plus also the
interact
fact that,
with
let's be
customers.
honest, it's I mean, we as a culture, since you mentioned that, at the end of the day, we've had a wonderful, fulfilling relationship with countries like, let's say, Japan, etc. So it's,
Yes.
it becomes a lot easier, right? A far more seamless kind of a shift for it to happen.
Yes, I think the kind of relationships that we have had with countries apart from US as well benefits us. It gives more confidence in
Yes.
India, and it's also the personal liking of the Japanese leaders sitting in
True.
those countries for Indians working in India, right? And that actually makes when I bucket of being a successful GCC, it's around talent, technology, but also trust.
Most
So I
important,
think
I
that
feel,
trust
I
is
don't know.
also very important for a GCC to be successful here in India.
True. So I guess all I have to say on that note is arigato gozaimasu. But of course now I'd like to talk about Telangana, which is targeting around 120 new GCCs by 2026. Tier 2 cities, this is very close to my heart, Nancy. Like Mysore, Coimbatore and Kochi are now in the conversation. That used to actually belong only to, let's say, a Bengaluru, Mumbai, Gurgaon. Now, what does distributed GCC growth actually do to cost structures and innovation quality? Does it dilute the model, or you feel it will strengthen it?
So I'll start with a little bit of an area which needs improvement, and then I'll come to the positives. This topic is very close to my heart as well, because I come from a tier 4 city.
Which is?
And I started my journey, which is Khetri, which
Nice, okay.
is a very, very small town in Rajasthan. It's near Pilani,
Right.
for people who don't know Khetri. But, obviously we did not even have the right schooling opportunities after 10th standard. So we had to move to a Bombay, Delhi, etc., because the opportunities did not follow where
True.
we were, even to the closer cities like Jaipur, for that matter. So therefore, this topic is very close to my heart. But I'll tell you that the tier 2 city right now are expanding. Like if you take example of Coimbatore, right? Protivity has their own GDC, GCC as we call
Right.
it, in Coimbatore being scaled up in the last 2 years. There are about 60, 70 GCC centers that have been set up in Coimbatore, and of which about
Fabulous.
50 to 60% are focusing on research and development.
Fabulous.
But can it happen at the scale of like we have in the big 6 cities? I think we have right now a long way to go, because our tier 2 cities, both in
Infrastructure, you
terms of the
mean?
talent, infrastructure, are far beyond, far below, even if you compare to a tier 2 city in China, right? And GCCs, when they have to set up their centers, the connectivity, the infrastructure, the talent really matters a lot.
That's
So
the harsh truth.
it's a long, yeah, it's the harsh truth, and it's I think we talk about migrating to tier 2 cities. We have to be really successful in our tier 1 cities, which are the big 6 that we talk about, from
But
an
then there are
infrastructure,
constraints,
talent.
Nancy. Let's face it, there are constraints. I mean, sheer basic constraints. Space, for example. Maybe that's why the Beyond Bengaluru push initiative.
Beyond Bangalore, yeah.
Policy
and we
came
are putting
through.
a lot of pressure on the infrastructure in, say, a Bangalore. If you've been, you are there,
Yes.
so you've seen the pressure that we put.
Please don't
But
depress
a
me
lot of
about the roads
GCCs.
right now.
So a lot of GCCs right now are experimenting. If you really see on the ground, is in a hub and spoke model. So you can have your hub in Delhi, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Hyderabad, but you can definitely have your the +1 model in
So you're saying the
Coimbatore,
leadership
Mysore.
sits in, let's say, the tier 1, and then the rest of the
And
production,
does not
etc.
continue to sit in tier 1. You
Okay.
start in tier 1, you set up a process, you mature it, and then you migrate it to a
Fair enough.
Coimbatore. Because that would be a far more successful model that GCCs have experimented and been successful in doing that, rather than having their very first center in Coimbatore. But having said that, some of the, as I said, the mid-sized GCCs, which is pure play cost arbitrage play for them to set up, I think for them to set up their first center in a tier 2 city with the help of the entire ecosystem and partners has been quite a successful model.
Fair
So they are
enough.
growing very fast, but catching up with tier 1 cities will take some time, I think.
See, also I don't know. I mean, I'd like a little bit on in terms of on this thought of yours, which is this. Now, if you set up in tier 2, tier 3 cities, for example, I do understand it's a very logical stumbling block that you just spoke about, infrastructure, let's say, etc. But from the talent point of view, Nancy, what are your thoughts? A person who's probably closer to home or is at home, and he doesn't have to, like, let's say, migrate to a Bengaluru or a Mumbai, etc., will be a lot more safe in terms of security as far as job security goes. He'll be probably be a lot more satisfied given the fact that he's closer to his family, etc. Thirdly, the fact that at the end of the day there will be a lot more retention for these GCCs, because, well, why would people like to leave their jobs then? So those are, do you think, important advantages where maybe the government can say, okay, listen, let's actually start to concentrate here?
The government, coming to that point, I think it's like a ramp walk for all the states to come up with a GCC policy. There are 9 states that came up with a GCC policy. I think there's enough and more being done over there. One of the factors, as you rightly pointed out, where tier 2 cities can outshine the tier 1 cities is on the overall continuity perspective, right?
Correct.
Because the attrition is low. Cost is definitely 25 to 30% lower, but I think that's not the driving advantage. The driving advantage is the continuity and the sustainability that you can achieve in a tier 2 city.
Yes.
Because attrition is low. People are happy to move from Bangalore and Mumbai to their hometowns, where they can have a life which is more fulfilling.
Correct.
So that's going to be definitely one advantage. But having said that, a lot of GCCs, in my view, would want to remain, the leaders specifically would want to remain close to where the action is. So, for example, if most of the functions are in Bangalore, having that one function in Coimbatore till you mature the Coimbatore center would need a little bit of time till it matures. So I think it's definitely going to happen. There is no two thoughts about it. Cities like Jaipur as well, for that matter.
Sure.
It's definitely going to happen, but the pace at which the functions move and till the time it becomes like a more holistic GCC setup, till then I think there would be a little bit of the bridgeway that we have to fill the gap.
Fair point. And I believe the infrastructure is being worked on quite aggressively as far as these tier 2, tier 3 cities are concerned. Am I right?
And Telangana has got the largest share.
Correct.
So I think that there's a lot of good work that's happening. I started in Hyderabad. In 15 years, the city has transformed, and there is, it's quite obvious the change that we see in Hyderabad in terms of GCCs coming and setting up their centers over there. Yeah.
True. Plus also the fact, let's be honest, as far as the entire policy which is being backed up, the main focus has been speed, which is to speed of converting, let's say, an MOU into actual boots on the ground. I think that's helped.
Yes, I think that there was a time when the first few GCCs were set up, it would take about 18 months to switch on the GCC, and I think now it's a matter of about 3 to 6 months. As soon as you decide, you can have your GCC up and running in 6 months' time, which is fantabulous. Yeah. The kind of that we've achieved. And in terms of subsidies, Sudhi, I think there is payroll subsidy that's been given to a lot of companies.
That's actually
The
also
FDI
the case with Karnataka, to be honest, Nancy. That's also.
And as I said, it's kind of a ramp walk where states are also competing with each other.
Which is a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it augurs wonderfully well as far as we as a nation is concerned. That's what I feel.
We're able to position ourselves as the right talent place.
Correct. So now, of course, I want to understand this. Is the absence, let's say, now maybe a few other numbers I'd like to share from the budget point of view. Let's say the budget 2025 announced a national guidance framework for GCCs. As of January of 2026, it unfortunately has still not been implemented, and fragmented state policy, as you mentioned. Now, is the absence of some sort of a framework, because I want to maybe push a little more on this, Nancy, I want to get your in-depth knowledge on this. Is that maybe also somewhere hitting the so-called growth, or do you feel the GCC boom is going to keep happening at this pace, and that policy is maybe going to continue to play catch up? Because what you and I have just discussed, I think both things need to kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, but if you give the right credit, so even in the central policy that came out, there were a lot of good things that were done around single window clearance, your safe harbor rules. But obviously, any policy is only successful if it's successfully implemented. And that's what we are waiting for. But I don't think that sort of impacts the GCC growth because it was happening even when those policies were not there. Or thought of.
Correct.
So I don't think it's going to hamper the growth. But having said that, these policies will definitely take that number to double of what we are talking about, right? We want to achieve 5,000 GCCs by 2030. So I think that
on the right track?
number will need. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for us to hit that ambitious number, we will have to have the right policies which are successfully implemented.
Want
I think
Nancy's
we have the
prediction.
right.
Are we going to hit that?
I don't think that we should give a number, but I strongly feel that it's quite a realistic number for us to achieve. Yeah.
Spoken like a true managing director right there. Well done, Nancy. Did not commit.
But I think it's quite achievable. We were talking about 1,700 and now, that conversation was not complete and we are sitting at 2,100. I'm pretty sure we can, if we do it right, we can hit the 5,000 number as well.
Fabulous. Okay, now then it brings me to this thought, which is by 2035, GCCs will be major then contributors to India's GDP, job market and tech leadership. Who said this, Nancy?
Any guesses?
That was again Nancy, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what does the next phase of this actually look like to you? Is it going to be, let's say, deeper integration with global headquarters, or is India finally going to own platforms and IP outright rather than starting to build someone else's? Because I think that is a big one.
See, if I have to be really honest with you, even if we own IPs and products end to end, the integration with the mothership will not go away. It has to happen.
Fair point. That's understood.
Some of the products and some of the roles have to be there in the home countries. But having said that, the quantum of ownership that can happen out of India is going to completely transform in the next 5 to 10 years. Given that I'm sure you would have seen the statement from Satya Nadella, Microsoft, and a lot of other leaders that 20 million AI skilled talent is what they are looking at, right? So at the scale at which we will upgrade our talent, our infrastructure, and supporting those GCCs, and every CEO's top agenda is efficiencies, margins, and bottom line. With these three things in mind, I think in the next 10 years, as you said, India is going to play a very, very pivotal role in terms of owning these products, platforms, IPs end-to-end outright to achieve that cost advantage and the bottom line.
And also, hopefully, a lot more of a flourishing tier 3, tier 4 city, push.
Yeah, I feel that, while I said in your initial question on tier 2 cities that it's still a long way for us to achieve, but for us to achieve the number of 5,000 GCCs, the end-to-end ownership, the tier 2 story has to really step up very, very fast. It cannot happen in tier 1 cities anymore because it's very expensive right now to have a center in Mumbai or for that matter, Bangalore as well. So those tier 2 cities are important.
Fair. Moving forward, finally, before I let you go, Nancy, what do you feel, what is actually going to be the role of productivity moving forward? Let's say, what are the plans looking like in terms of all of everything that we've discussed, which has honestly been quite enthralling as a discussion. What is your role and, for example, the company's role going to be moving forward?
I think ours, along with many others like us and the entire ecosystem that we need for GCCs, we want to make it a plug-in and play for the GCCs who are looking to come to India. It should be an auto engine that
I'll
runs
say
for them.
the India offices they'd like to come to.
The India offices, yes. We should probably change the narrative right away. So the India offices should have that plug-and-play infrastructure, both from an admin, staff, talent, setting up real estate, tax. So companies like us and many others like us in the entire ecosystem, including startups, where you have the thinkers that we need for India offices to be successful. That's where I see Protivity adding value, and that's what we are doing for a lot of our clients right now, to give that ready plug-and-play infrastructure to make their success probably 10x faster.
That's wonderful. Nancy, it's been a true pleasure having you with us on Front Page, and it's an ever-evolving, very dynamic story as far as the India office story goes. So I would like to request you that as and when, whatever are the lovely developments which are taking place, I would love to pick your brain again by inviting you back on Front Page.
Sure, Sudhi. Lovely to interact with you, and thank you so much again for having me here.
Fair enough. Onwards and upwards to you. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. As I had mentioned at the top, TCS had cut 12,200 jobs in the same week. American tech giants added 32,000 in India through their own centers, which are, of course, as Nancy and I have finalized, that we're going to call them India offices. Well, the times are, I believe, changing, and the fact that it looks extremely positive, the fact that yes, there is government policy backing all of this up, and the growth is accelerating. But more importantly, as Nancy mentioned, and I agree with her, the fact is that the tier 2, tier 3 story has to really double up for us to hit that mark of 5,000 plus India offices by 2035. So, well, what are your thoughts? Please do let us know in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the IM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think IM.